My name is Claire Gao, and I am the most pathetic marchioness in all of the capital city. Marquess Daniel of Jingan married me for one simple reason. I was obedient and easily manipulated. Before our wedding, he had made his intentions crystal clear, without the slightest attempt at concealment. As long as you treat my beloved Rose well after entering our household and show her no jealousy or spite, I will ensure you receive the respect befitting your station. For the sake of my family's honor, I had no choice but to accept this arrangement. From the moment I crossed the threshold of the Marquess's residence, Rose sat while I stood. Rose feasted on meat while I sipped broth. When imperial gifts arrived from the palace, Rose selected her favorites first, leaving me whatever remained. I had always believed that the Marquess was satisfied with my conduct over these many years. Yet as I prepared to leave, he stood trembling at the doorway, blocking my path. "You are my wife. You cannot go anywhere." My heart filled with bewilderment. Wasn't I making room for his beloved? "I am Claire Gao, daughter of a man who serves as Director of Studies at the Imperial Academy, a position equivalent to that of a modern university's Vice-Chancellor, responsible for overseeing the daily operations of our empire's premier educational institution. From childhood, I had earned a reputation for wisdom, virtue, and gentle refinement. When I reached the age of majority, the Dowager Marchioness of Jingjian, mother to the current Marquess Daniel, sent word to my grandmother expressing interest in making me his second wife. The Marquess's first wife, Lady Li, had passed away 2 years prior, and propriety demanded he take a new wife to manage the household. Though Daniel was 10 years my senior, a man's worth lies in his capabilities. Marquess Daniel was favored by His Majesty, held considerable power, and his residence was renowned throughout the capital for its wealth and luxury. For a daughter of a fourth-rank official such as myself, this match was undeniably advantageous. I felt as though fortune itself had smiled upon me from the heavens. Even my mother whispered to my father in private, "When our Claire was born, the sky blazed with rosy clouds. Truly, she was destined for great prosperity." My second and fourth sisters envied me greatly, teasing, "Once you become a marchioness, don't forget about your humble sisters." I blushed with embarrassment, yet felt my heart soar with sweet anticipation for the future. After our families agreed to the betrothal, the Dowager Marchioness made a special visit to see me. She was kind-faced and gentle, even presenting me with an exquisite jade bracelet carved from the finest Heetian jade. I knew she held genuine affection for me. In time, I would honor her dutifully, devote myself wholeheartedly to bearing children for the Marquess's lineage, and manage the household with wisdom and care. When the Dowager Marchioness's birthday approached, the residents sent a formal invitation, mentioning they had engaged a famous theatrical troupe from the capital and requesting that my grandmother, sisters, and I arrive early. I spent days preparing an elaborate embroidered gift, working day and night for 5 or 6 days straight, determined to present the Dowager with something worthy of her station. Yet, when that day arrived, I discovered a woman of ethereal beauty seated beside the Dowager Marchioness. She wore a gown of shoe brocade, adorned with cloud patterns, her hair decorated with pearls and jade ornaments, appearing every inch a celestial fairy. From her bearing to her manner of interaction, she was utterly without fault. Upon inquiry, I learned she was the Marquess's concubine. I knew, of course, that Daniel, approaching 30 and possessed of such charm and refinement, could hardly be expected to live a celibate life. Yet here was this concubine, seated openly beside the Dowager Marchioness, with the household's evident respect. I observed carefully as servants came and went. Nearly all deferred to her instructions. This woman was no mere concubine. She commanded more respect than any legitimate wife would dare expect. My future husband's eyes, meanwhile, never strayed from this beloved concubine for even a moment. As we sat through the birthday celebration, my grandmother, sisters, and I all grew increasingly pale. During a brief intermission, we made inquiries and learned that this concubine was named Rose and had resided in the Marquess's household for over 2 years. Daniel cherished her above all others, lavishing upon her every possible favor. For her sake, he had even dismissed his other concubines. Had her birth not been so humble, he might have elevated her to the position of wife. Sadly, Rose had been redeemed from a courtesan house where she had worked as an entertainer. Though never as a prostitute, her background made her unsuitable for such honor. They said she possessed remarkable abilities and had gradually won over even the initially disapproving Dowager Marchioness. Now I understood perfectly. Before my grandfather's death, he had held only 3rd rank, and the highest positions in our family belonged to my uncle and father at 4th rank. The Marquess's household had chosen me precisely because I was gentle, accommodating, and easy to control. They wanted me to accept this impossibly elevated concubine without complaint. Realizing the true nature of this marriage arrangement, I felt darkness close around me and nearly fainted. As people say, the heavens never drop gifts without reason. How prophetic those words proved to be. If I married into this household, I would enjoy neither my husband's affection nor the dignity due a principal wife. Even a wooden doll would possess more spirit than that. The Marquess's family was thoroughly insulting me. This marriage would prove far worse than my elder sister's match to a poor scholar. At least she could hold her head high and rule her own home. Our family returned home with grave expressions. My 4th sister, still young, declared indignantly, "The Wu family shows us intolerable disrespect." Indeed, the Dowager Marchioness was cunning beyond measure. Today's display was designed to force me to accept such an arrangement. My heart filled with despair as I said, "Grandmother, I cannot go through with this marriage." My grandmother surveyed the room, then fixed her gaze upon me for a long moment before saying wearily, "Everyone except Claire may leave us." Seeing that my grandmother wished to speak privately, I fell to my knees with a cry. "Grandmother, I beg you, I cannot marry into that household. The Marquess's residence is nothing but a pit of fire. Marriage should unite 2 families in harmony, yet from beginning to end, Daniel has not spared me so much as a glance. His heart and mind are entirely consumed by his beloved concubine. He wants me only as a decorative puppet. If I could endure such treatment, would I not be utterly without dignity? Given his conduct, no respectable family would entrust their daughter to such a fate." My grandmother laughed bitterly. "Claire, my child, let me speak plainly. Were it not for this concubine's presence, a man of the Marquess's power, position, talent, and appearance could marry anyone he chose. Even an imperial princess would be within his reach. He selected you precisely because of this concubine." Tears streamed down my face as I crawled to my grandmother's side, grasping her hands. "I no longer wish to marry into nobility, grandmother. I would rather follow my elder sister's example and wed a poor scholar than live such a life." Before my grandfather's death, the Gao family had ranked among the capital's 2nd-tier houses. Though we lacked the Marquess's wealth and splendor, both my grandfather and uncle had kept concubines. I understood all too well the misery of wives competing with concubines for their husband's favor. Daniel had deliberately arranged this display during my visit to make his expectations clear. Marry him and show respect for his concubine, or face a lifetime of suffering. If I agreed, I would endure endless humiliation. If I objected and quarreled with his beloved, he would never take my side. The Marquess's household was no minor establishment. Such a great estate required proper management. If I married in, would the servants obey me or defer to that concubine? A house divided against itself invites disaster and endless trouble. My grandmother sighed deeply. Claire, my dear child, how could I bear to see you suffer? Yet this marriage cannot be broken. She continued with obvious pain. Your uncle has made errors in his official duties, and only the Marquis's intervention preserved his position. Currently, your uncle holds our family's highest rank. Should he face disgrace, what would become of your other sisters? You have always been the most understanding and dutiful among my grandchildren. This once, consider it a sacrifice for our family's sake. My grandmother held me close, and after a moment of silence added, Today I observed this concubine, and she possesses neither 3 heads nor 6 arms. She is merely young and beautiful, a temporary fascination. You are intelligent, gentle, lovely, and well-educated. The Marquis will surely come to value you. Grandmother has lived long enough to understand men. None remain devoted forever. Their affections are fleeting, though some last longer than others. As long as you maintain your dignity and avoid conflict with that concubine while fulfilling your duties, this life can be endured. I knelt in stunned silence, unable to speak a word. It seemed I had no escape. Returning to my chambers, I wept bitterly. My mother said sorrowfully, I will plead with your grandmother to reconsider. My father paced anxiously. Alas, it is useless. Your uncle has brought this upon you. Indeed, it was useless. In my grandmother's mind, my uncle's position outweighed my happiness. Moreover, her reasoning was sound. If my uncle lost his office, my father, merely an academic at the Imperial Academy, would be powerless to help. My 3rd and 4th uncles had achieved nothing of note. Our entire family would gradually decline. Before long, my sisters would be forced into disadvantageous marriages with even bleaker prospects. Furthermore, our family had already committed to the Marquess. Withdrawing now might earn his enmity. After a sleepless night of contemplation, I told my grandmother the following morning. I wish to meet the Marquess privately. My grandmother nodded. Very well. 3 days later, my grandmother arranged for me to visit a temple for prayer. Daniel waited in a pavilion behind the temple grounds. Upon meeting, I offered him a proper curtsy. The Marquis stood with his hands clasped behind his back, saying coolly, I hear you have something to discuss. Taking a deep breath, I replied, Since we are negotiating a marriage contract, I believe certain matters should be clarified in advance. Daniel nodded. Reasonable. I continued, I understand that you wish to marry me so that I will treat Rose well. The Marquis replied with cold amusement, Precisely. His complete lack of pretense revealed how little he regarded me. I steadied myself and said, My lord's honesty is admirable, and the Gao family owes you a debt of gratitude. I, Claire, am willing to become your wife. After a pause, I added, However, every household requires leadership. I understand the Dowager Marchioness is advanced in years and cannot oversee every detail personally. All domestic affairs require supervision, and social obligations demand a principal wife's attention. Since Rose enjoys your favor and the Dowager's affection, how should I conduct myself after joining your household? When a favored concubine overshadows the wife, household harmony suffers. Should word reach the imperial censors or His Majesty's ears, surely that would prove unfortunate. The Marquis smirked arrogantly. Do you think I fear their impeachment? I responded respectfully. Domestic discord is considered deeply inauspicious. I can promise to treat Rose kindly after joining your household. However, I request that you clearly define both our respective responsibilities to prevent future conflicts. I have no desire to live amid scheming and plotting, she harming me, I harming her in return. Surely you would not wish to return home each day to face such tedious disputes between wife and concubine. After hearing this speech, Daniel finally looked at me with genuine attention. He raised an eyebrow. The Dowager Marchioness described you as honest and understanding, but I see you possess intelligence as well. Perhaps you practice the wisdom of appearing simple while harboring deeper thoughts. I shook my head. If I were truly clever, my lord would not have chosen me. I simply hope we can establish clear understanding now to avoid future difficulties. This represented the best terms I could secure for myself. Daniel nodded. Very well. You, as the principal wife, shall manage all household affairs and handle social obligations with relatives and friends. Rose's quarters and my study require no attention from you. The study represented the true seat of power. Naturally, he could not trust me with access to it. Nevertheless, these terms were acceptable. I lowered my gaze respectfully. I am grateful, my lord. Before we parted, I said quietly, my lord undertakes great responsibilities. Remember that a family's greatest fear is disunity. Such discord brings endless harm to future generations. Daniel replied coldly, I need no lectures from you. I would not presume to instruct you. I stepped back, clearing his path. Thus, 2 months later, I married the Marquis Daniel. My grandmother, heartbroken over my situation, provided a generous dowry. My parents, fearing the Marquis's household might look down upon me, contributed nearly all their savings. I urged my mother to keep some back. The family's future remains uncertain, and my younger brother is still young. Reserve more for his education and marriage. My brother was only 10 years old. He would need considerable resources in years to come. My mother wept like a broken-hearted woman. Dear child, our family has failed you. My siblings clung to me reluctantly. I resolutely released their hands and departed the Gao residence through tears. From this day forward, whatever might occur, I would face it alone. Fortunately, on our wedding night, Daniel did come to the bridal chamber. He drank the ceremonial wine with me and consummated our marriage. Though he showed neither tenderness nor enthusiasm, at least he granted me a measure of dignity before witnesses. By the second day, however, he had moved to Rose's quarters. My maid Mary indignantly declared, what household leaves the principal wife's chambers empty on the second night after marriage? That Rose shows no sense of propriety whatsoever. I sighed. This is not Rose's fault. My lord may go wherever he pleases. You must understand our situation clearly. To my lord and Rose, we are the outsiders. Following my grandmother's advice, I resolved to avoid conflict and fulfill my duties without complaint. Expecting too much from Daniel and the Marquis's household would only bring me heartache. I began settling into my new life, organizing my belongings and dowry while gradually assuming household responsibilities. Each day, I paid my respects to the Dowager Marchioness, inquiring after her health and fulfilling a daughter-in-law's obligations. The Dowager treated me kindly, though her words carried subtle warnings. You are the principal wife. No one will overstep your authority. Do not create unnecessary constraints for yourself. I replied gently, I understand, Mother. Thank you for your guidance.
The Dowager nodded approvingly. I knew you were an intelligent woman.
Rose paid me a single courtesy visit after my arrival, then claimed illness and never appeared again. Clearly, she had no desire to see me, which suited me perfectly. I instructed the servants to tell her to rest well and not trouble herself with visits. Mary fumed. No household in the capital tolerates such behavior from a concubine. Where are the rules? You should teach her a lesson. I remained unmoved. Pay her no mind. Act as though she does not exist. Any attempt to mistreat Rose would bring Daniel's immediate wrath. Why invite such trouble? After some time in the household, I gradually mastered the management of domestic affairs. The Wu family employed many long-serving servants, clever and cunning individuals who, seeing that I dared not trouble Rose, assumed I was weak and easily bullied. They began openly shirking their duties under my very nose. I said nothing, never raised my voice in anger or displayed imperial wrath, but quietly recorded their transgressions before seeking the Dowager Marchioness's guidance. The Dowager, experienced in household management, understood that allowing such behavior initially would destroy my authority entirely. She severely punished these servants. The household staff dared not voice their anger openly, but muttered privately that I was a dog that bites without barking. I pretended not to hear. Rules are rules. Wrongdoing must be punished and merit rewarded to maintain proper household order. Upon taking charge of domestic affairs, I discovered that Rose cared nothing about who managed the household. Daniel, fearing she might suffer hardship, had purchased numerous valuable properties and shops for her outside the residence, worth several times more than my dowry. Simply collecting rents brought her wealth beyond counting each month. No wonder Rose was said to reward servants with gold coins, earning everyone's eager flattery. Moreover, while the household used soybean oil for lighting, Rose's chambers burned expensive whale oil, a rare commodity primarily reserved for the imperial palace. The Marquis's wealth was truly staggering. Even if I lost my mind and attempted to mistreat Rose, she would fear nothing. Why should I play the villain? Therefore, I ensured her monthly allowances for clothing, food, and necessities were of the highest quality. Whether she used them herself or rewarded servants mattered nothing to me. Daniel primarily resided in either his study or Rose's quarters, visiting the principal wife's chambers only on the 1st and 15th of each month to fulfill his obligations. I always greeted him with courtesy and smiles. When he came, I neither refused nor complained. When he stayed away, I felt no sadness. My days were occupied with managing my own responsibilities. Even when imperial gifts arrived and Rose selected her favorites before sending me the remainder, I raised no objections. Seeing my docile and unassuming behavior, Daniel found no grounds for complaint. Thus, a full year passed in apparent peace. During leisure hours, I read, painted, embroidered, and arranged flowers. Sometimes I played cards with my maids. For a while, these days proved quite comfortable. Before my arrival, many of Daniel's friends had doubted me. They believed Daniel's excessive elevation of Rose would bring household chaos. Any woman would surely cause trouble. Yet unexpectedly, I had endured everything with such patience. Daniel's closest friend, Samuel Scholar, expressed profound admiration, repeatedly seeking advice. Brother Daniel, your household runs so smoothly, with such harmony between wife and concubine. What methods did you employ? Please teach us. When I merely went out drinking once, my wife nearly clawed my face to shreds. Daniel always responded with knowing smiles, his eyes filled with satisfaction. The Dowager Marchioness also praised me publicly, calling me virtuous and magnanimous. My reputation spread, and my sisters gradually found excellent matches. My uncle weathered his crisis and now walked more carefully in official circles. Seeing the Gao family's rising fortunes, I felt my sacrifice had been worthwhile. In the 7th month of the following year, on the 9th day, Daniel's aunt celebrated her birthday. She had married into the Lancaster family, and the festivities were organized by her eldest daughter-in-law, Lady He, who maintained a close friendship with Rose. Initially, Lady He had also looked down upon Rose's background, but when her own family faced difficulties, Rose had pleaded with Daniel for assistance, successfully resolving their troubles. Lady He remained deeply grateful. Daniel maintained strict principles in both personal conduct and official duties, but anything Rose requested, he granted without question. This made everyone eager to curry favor with Rose for the sake of the Marquis's influence, treating her with warmth and courtesy. I understood perfectly this was Daniel's strategy. Whomever he chose to elevate could never face neglect. Upon arriving at the Lancaster residence, Lady He offered me only perfunctory pleasantries before abandoning me to fawn over Rose with obvious affection. Cousin Rose grows more beautiful each day. Even I feel envious as a woman. Rose covered her mouth and laughed. Your tongue must be dipped in honey. Oh my, this gown is shoe brocade, isn't it? The two chattered enthusiastically, completely ignoring my presence. Other ladies, seeing this, swarmed around Rose, praising either her jewelry or her clothing. Mary watched me being ignored, her face flushing with indignation. I shook my head at her and found an isolated corner to sit alone. I had grown accustomed to such cold treatment over the past year. Shortly after settling myself, I overheard two young wives gossiping in an adjacent room. That woman earlier was the new wife the Marquis married, Lady Gao. She's not unattractive, is she? What good does beauty do? Couldn't you see? She can't even approach that Rose concubine's shadow. If it were me, I'd fight with everything I had, rather than let a concubine suppress me so completely. Better to lose face than live so uselessly. Fighting would prove futile. Everyone knows the Marquis's heart belongs entirely to that Rose woman. My father received a marriage proposal for my younger sister, but refused immediately upon hearing it. Indeed, who would willingly throw their daughter into such a pit? That Lady Gao must be truly pitiable. My heart ached hearing these words, yet I felt powerless. Circumstances constrained me. I had already secured the greatest possible space for my survival. As for the rest, I could only pretend not to see or hear. External criticism still cut like knives across my heart. Thinking of this, I sighed and prepared to change seats to avoid the embarrassment of being discovered by these women. Turning around, I found Daniel and the Dowager Marchioness standing behind me, their expressions somewhat grim. I lowered my head, changed my expression, and smiled at the Dowager. Mother, have you finished speaking with your sister-in-law? Shall I escort you to the banquet? The Dowager closed her eyes briefly before saying, Yes, dear child, let us go. Before leaving, she gave Daniel a meaningful look. Though Daniel said nothing, his discomfort was obvious. After returning home, the Dowager Marchioness specially gifted me a set of red gold hair ornaments, perhaps to compensate for my lost dignity. I heard she had also reprimanded Daniel in the main courtyard. Claire is the wife you chose to marry. Regardless of your feelings toward her, she remains your legitimate spouse. You cannot show such obvious favoritism. Daniel reportedly replied, To me, only Rose is truly my wife. The Dowager angrily responded, You favor Rose, and I have said nothing. You held a wedding ceremony for her and granted her every dignity. No concubine in the capital enjoys greater comfort. Yet if you go too far, what will others think? People have hearts of flesh. Daniel remained silent for a long while. These words reached my ears deliberately. The Dowager wanted me to know of her support. I maintained my respectful attitude without commenting further. Following this incident, Daniel treated me somewhat better than initially, showing me greater courtesy before friends and relatives. Once, when the Crown Prince held a banquet for young talents, taking a concubine like Rose would have been inappropriate, so Daniel brought me instead. During the evening, the Crown Prince felt inspired to compose poetry and asked everyone to participate impromptu. The winner would receive a luminous pearl recently presented as tribute from the Eastern Sea. Though the pearl was precious beyond measure, the gathered men were more eager to display their talents before His Highness. Everyone composed with utmost dedication, hoping to claim this honor. Daniel ultimately won with a 7-character regulated verse. In high spirits that evening, he immediately presented the luminous pearl to me. "This comes from His Royal Highness. Keep it safe." My heart filled with apprehension, but I had no choice but to accept. Upon our return, Rose immediately fell ill that very night. She remained unwell for several days. Finally, Daniel approached me with obvious embarrassment. "That luminous pearl." I quickly had a servant fetch it and handed it to him. "Here it is, my lord. Please take it." Why create difficulties over such a trinket and cause Rose distress? Daniel looked uncomfortable. "Rose has a delicate constitution. This pearl can calm her nerves. Let me borrow it briefly before returning it to you." Before he finished speaking, I said calmly, "No need to return it. The luminous pearl never truly belonged to me anyway. Keeping it would serve no purpose." More than a month later, urgent news arrived from my natal family. My second sister was in trouble. She had married 6 months after my wedding to the younger son of General Lin. Her husband was honest and devoted, treating her with genuine affection. Unfortunately, her mother-in-law proved extremely difficult, constantly scolding my sister and forcing her to observe rigid rules of conduct. Recently, my second sister had become pregnant, but her mother-in-law, for unknown reasons, forced her to stand for an entire day as punishment. That very night, my sister began bleeding and lost the child. My aunt was furious and planned to confront the Lin family with my mother. Since I held the highest position among our female relatives as a marchioness, I was expected to accompany them and defend my sister's honor. Upon reaching the Lin household, I found my second sister pale and haggard, clearly having suffered greatly. Yet before we could voice our grievances, her mother-in-law went on the attack, listing my sister's supposed faults. She claimed my sister showed disrespect to her elders, possessed a difficult temperament, and that the miscarriage resulted from her own misconduct. My aunt exploded with rage. "What kind of mother-in-law are you? You had a grandson at last, yet you tormented your daughter-in-law until the child was lost. My daughter has always been gentle. You're simply bullying her because she's kind-hearted. The Gao family has not left our daughter defenseless. We won't tolerate such abuse." My sister's mother-in-law planted her hands on her hips. "Elders can do no wrong. What's so precious about your Gao family daughters that she dares disobey her mother-in-law?" I interjected. "Such words are unreasonable. Harmony brings prosperity to families. Regardless of fault, my sister carried the Lin family's flesh and blood." My sister's mother-in-law glared at me and sneered. "Oh, if it isn't the Marchioness of Jingon! Everyone knows the Marquis favors his concubine over his wife and never regards you seriously. You can't even manage a single concubine in your own household. How dare you show your face in public?" My mother, incensed, shouted, "I'll tear out that vile tongue of yours." The situation erupted in chaos, with shouting and commotion lasting the entire afternoon. Neither side would yield. Finally, my aunt had no choice but to take my second sister back to our natal home. Before our departure, my sister's mother-in-law declared, "I will not allow my son to retrieve your daughter. If you're so capable, she need never return." Back home, my grandmother chided my aunt for acting rashly. "If they truly refuse to take her back, what becomes of second Miss?" My aunt wept. "She is flesh of my flesh. How could I bear to see her suffer? They won't even let her recuperate properly after the miscarriage, refusing her even a bowl of chicken soup." Hearing this, even my grandmother shed tears of sorrow. In these times, a kind husband matters less than a kind mother-in-law. No one had expected my sister's mother-in-law to prove so unreasonable and shrewish, behaving worse than a common peasant woman. After a day of fruitless effort, I had accomplished nothing meaningful. I gave my aunt some premium ginseng to help restore my sister's health. My aunt wiped her tears and said to me, "Dear child, thank you. Your situation is not easy either." Returning to the Marquis's residence, I felt deeply unsettled, sitting on my daybed for hours without recovering my composure. This world proved harsh for women. My case merely involved not gaining my husband's affection, but at least the Dowager Marchioness treated me decently. By enduring patiently, I could survive each day. Yet what reputation did I enjoy publicly? I was nothing but a useless, pathetic creature. What would become of my second sister? Her husband was filial and dared not oppose his mother. Could they truly remain separated forever? Lost in troubled thoughts, I failed to notice the setting sun until servants announced the Marquis's arrival. Today was the 15th. I quickly ordered dinner prepared. Daniel observed, "You seemed so absorbed in thought that you didn't hear me calling several times." I explained, "I was thinking about my sister's troubles." To avoid awkward silence, I briefly recounted the day's events. Daniel asked, "Why didn't you come to me for help?" I stared at him in confusion. Daniel smiled. Lady Lynn and General Lynn married when they were both of humble birth. I understand she comes from a butcher's family and has always been difficult and unreasonable. She behaves this way because she favors her eldest son and feels resentment that carries over to her younger son's wife. So that explained it. Every family had its own troubles. Daniel continued casually, "Lady Lynn's eldest son serves under me. Her daring to mistreat my wife's sister shows disrespect toward me. I need only make things difficult for him at work and he'll understand what to do." Hearing the word wife, I felt uncomfortable. "My lord, please don't trouble yourself." I understood my position. I was only nominally the Marchioness. I lacked Rose's standing to make such requests. Daniel's expression changed. "You certainly maintain distance with me." He cleared his throat and covered his mouth with his hand. "Rest assured, as the Marchioness of Jingon, any disrespect toward you constitutes disrespect toward me. Since you married me, I will not allow you to suffer humiliation." Would not allow me to suffer humiliation? Yet the greatest humiliation came from him. I opened my mouth, but ultimately said nothing. 2 days later, word came from my family that Lady Lynn had completely reversed her attitude, making a grand show of retrieving my second sister. She promised to treat her younger daughter-in-law well in the future, asking only that I speak favorably of her eldest son to the Marquis. Had Daniel truly intervened? I was amazed. Official rank indeed carried overwhelming power. Seeing my sister's troubles resolved brought me considerable relief. I considered thanking Daniel by making him clothing or food, but realized Rose handled all his garments and shoes. He never required my involvement. After reflection, I decided not to create unnecessary complications. Instead, I crafted arm warmers and knee protectors for the Dowager Marchioness. To show my care, I specially selected beautiful jade from my dowry to incorporate into the designs. The Dowager recognized my thoughtfulness immediately upon seeing my handiwork. Pleased, she held my hand. In fierce winds, strong grass reveals itself. In chaos, loyal ministers emerge. Previously, I worried you might only appear obedient superficially, but I see you truly possess both honesty and wisdom. Be assured, the Marquis will not treat you poorly in the future." I replied, "Thank you for your praise, Mother. I am simple by nature. I do whatever my elders require, knowing they would never harm me." The Dowager studied me quietly for a moment before saying wistfully, "Daniel will discover your worth." My heart trembled. I needed no such discovery from him. Following this incident, perhaps after the Dowager's influence, Daniel visited me more frequently than before, increasing from twice monthly to 3 or 5 times. 2 months later, I discovered I was pregnant. On the very day I learned of my pregnancy, Rose collapsed in a faint. Mary muttered privately, "You've just discovered your pregnancy," and she immediately summons a physician with great fanfare. How inauspicious. For years, Daniel remained childless. His first wife, Lady Lee, had poor health and bore no children. Rose, coming from a pleasure quarter, was said to have been given contraceptive medicines that left her unable to conceive easily. Now that I carried a child, the Dowager Marchioness rejoiced beyond measure, rewarding me with many precious foods and assigning an experienced midwife to oversee my diet and daily care. Daniel also began paying closer attention, visiting my quarters several times. These developments must have distressed Rose greatly. Nevertheless, having a child brought me joy. Regardless of gender, this baby would deepen my connection to the Marquis's household and help me establish my position. A woman's first half of life depends on her husband. The second half can rely on her children. One day, after the physician confirmed my good health and favorable pulse, assuring me I need only await delivery peacefully, I felt remarkably content. At midday, I ate a large bowl of wontons and an additional oil-rolled pastry. Since my pregnancy, not only had Mary beamed with joy, but all the servants in my courtyard walked with confidence and obvious happiness. That evening, however, Daniel arrived unexpectedly. After inquiring about my health and receiving assurance that all was well, he spoke with obvious deliberation. "I've learned that your father's superior is due for promotion. Given his steady and reliable record, with proper intervention, he could certainly advance another rank." Something in his tone struck me as odd, so I replied, "My lord need not concern himself excessively. My father lacks exceptional talent. Inappropriate elevation could prove disadvantageous." My father possessed solid learning, but remained far from skilled in navigating official politics. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Don't women typically hope for their natal family's advancement to improve their own standing in their husband's household?" I sighed. No matter how high my father might rise, he could never match the Marquess's power. Otherwise, I would have sought immediate divorce and married a man who would truly be my husband, rather than enduring this life of silent suffering and constant vigilance. Naturally, I dared not voice such thoughts, merely saying, "Truly unnecessary." Daniel studied me intently, hesitating momentarily before finally stating, "Given your pregnancy, Rose has been quite distressed emotionally." How was I supposed to respond to that? I could only remain silent. Daniel sighed. "Rose has been with me for so long without bearing a single child." I offered, "With gradual care for her health, success will come. My maternal grandmother knows an excellent women's physician whom Rose might consult." These were empty courtesies. Given Rose's delicate condition, I dared not recommend any physician to her. Daniel looked into my eyes and said through gritted teeth, "I can arrange for both your father and uncle to receive promotions. If, after you deliver this child, would you allow your firstborn to be raised by Rose?" Daniel's words struck me like ice water poured over my head. My initial joy instantly vanished. My heart felt violently wrenched, causing nearly unbearable pain. This was the consequence of kindness being mistaken for weakness. Endless retreat and submission ultimately led to being trampled underfoot. As people said, no other wife in the capital could be found who lacked dignity so completely. I couldn't even protect my own child. What had these 2 years of careful conduct and diligent service meant? In the next moment, I felt sweetness in my throat, my chest convulsed, and my mouth filled with the taste of blood. Seeing me vomit blood, Daniel's expression changed drastically. "What's happening to you?" "Someone come quickly! Summon the physician!" Mary nearly died of fright, continuously massaging my chest. "Miss! Miss, don't frighten your servant like this. Please breathe, don't scare me so. The physician arrived in panic and immediately checked my pulse. The commotion even alarmed the Dowager Marchioness. What on earth happened? How could she suddenly vomit blood? The physician explained. The Marchioness is pregnant and should maintain her health carefully, avoiding extreme emotions. The Yellow Emperor's classic states, anger causes qi to flow upward and in severe cases leads to vomiting blood. This has injured her stomach meridian. After prescribing medicine, the physician departed. Mary, still worried, followed to ask about additional precautions. The Dowager Marchioness saw my paper-white complexion and labored breathing. Her eyes reddened. What exactly happened here? When I remained silent, she turned to Daniel. He, too, had been badly frightened. In his mind, I had married him for my family's prosperity and my uncle's official position. Surely I was someone who coveted power and wealth. He had assumed his offer represented sufficient compensation, never expecting me to become so enraged that I vomited blood. After learning everything, the Dowager Marchioness looked at Daniel with disappointment. Daniel, you have been intelligent since childhood, never neglecting your studies or martial training. As an adult, your official duties and family management have been demanding. Therefore, I indulged your wishes and allowed Rose to act as she pleased in this household. Yet today you could speak such words. Have you lost your mind completely? If this matter became public knowledge, what face would the Marquis's residence retain? How could I ever meet the Gao family again? The Dowager felt dizzy and required maid support before sitting down, then said wearily, "Had I known it would come to this, I never would have arranged your marriage. I should have let you remain wifeless and childless. What terrible karma, what terrible karma." Daniel's face went deathly pale. After a long silence, he said quietly, "I merely inquired. I never said I would definitely take the child away. I thought about how she could bear more children in the future, just letting Rose raise this first one to give her something to depend on in old age. This was simply a transaction. If she disagreed, I wouldn't force anything." The Dowager Marchioness looked utterly disheartened, shaking her head in bitter self-mockery. She had always believed that if I remained understanding, Daniel would eventually give me his genuine affection. Now she realized this had been mere wishful thinking. No longer looking at Daniel, she said to me, "Dear child, don't dwell on this. I am here. The Marquis's residence will not tolerate such behavior." My emotional outburst had left me drained, and it took considerable time to regain my composure. After this ordeal, I finally began to think clearly.
I struggled to sit up, managing to shed a tear. "Mother, I have something to say." The Dowager immediately replied, "My child, speak freely. I will grant whatever you wish."
I slowly sat upright, looked toward Daniel, and asked, "Why does Rose want my child?" Daniel's expression darkened. "If you're unwilling, that settles it. Must you create such a scene and pursue the matter relentlessly?" So now I was pursuing matters relentlessly? I smiled bitterly. "My lord, since joining your household, I have never mistreated Rose. Her quarters receive the finest provisions. I have neither recruited nor persecuted her servants. All imperial gifts are hers to choose from first, and even when His Highness granted me that luminous pearl, I returned it completely when Rose desired it. How many women could handle such situations with such equanimity? Have I not fulfilled my initial promise to you by managing these circumstances?" Daniel paused, then admitted quietly, "You have done very well." I took a deep breath. Rose enjoys abundant properties and never lacks money. If she wished, she could purchase beautiful women to bear children for my lord, then sell them afterward. Wouldn't children obtained this way prove safer and more reliable than taking mine? Daniel said nothing. The dowager's expression shifted slightly. I sighed. I don't know how Rose approached you, whether through tears or displays of vulnerability. In truth, her goal isn't to raise a child. She is simply too clever. Though women are weak, mothers become strong. Rose knows I would never consent to giving her my child, so she acts first, hoping to force me into attacking her in self-defense. Daniel stared in shock. I continued. For men, the greatest hatred comes from having one's father killed or wife stolen. But for women, if our children fall into another's hands, we endure bone-deep, heart-scorching pain daily. Daniel opened his mouth wordlessly. I closed my eyes and sighed. Since my pregnancy, the dowager has shown great attention, and my lord visits more frequently than before. Rose naturally feels anxious watching this. Though Rose enjoyed abundant favor, such elevation beyond her station was like walking on thin ice. How could she peacefully watch me bear legitimate heirs? Looking at both Daniel and the dowager, I said clearly, "This marks Rose's first move against me. She simply uses my lord's hand rather than employing secret schemes. This represents open strategy, not hidden conspiracy." Rose's plot was truly vicious. She had indeed provoked my anger and nearly driven me to rash action. Fortunately, my mind remained clear enough to avoid her trap. Both Daniel and the dowager, being shrewd individuals, immediately grasped the implications. The dowager said in amazement, "I warned from the beginning that women from such places harbor improper thoughts, but you were blinded by infatuation." Daniel insisted through clenched teeth. "You're overthinking this. Rose is pure-hearted. She surely didn't intend anything malicious." The favored, indeed, possess fearless confidence. I sighed. "My lord may disbelieve me, but after years together, you should understand her nature better than anyone." So, according to Rose's plan, had I acted against her, you would certainly have rejected me. At minimum, I would face divorce. At worst, I'd be stripped of all authority and confined to a single courtyard for the remainder of my life. Since the fault would be mine, the Gao family could not intervene on my behalf. Rose would eliminate me as a threat while legitimately raising my lord's heir. A triple victory. No, actually quadruple, because with me serving as a puppet, the Marquess's household would never need to marry another wife. Only then would Rose feel truly secure. After I finished speaking, both the dowager and Daniel looked stunned. I allowed them time to understand these implications. The dowager took a deep breath and said angrily, "I warned you long ago, excessive elevation of concubines brings household disaster. Daniel, if you continue this indulgence, don't blame me for taking action." Daniel displayed obvious internal conflict. I understood that in his eyes, Rose remained pitiable and lovely. Whatever she did was justified. If Rose wanted to strike me, I should offer my cheek willingly. Unfortunately, I no longer wished to accommodate such behavior. Daniel said in a heavy voice, "These are merely your one-sided accusations, far too presumptuous. Rose lacks such elaborate scheming." The dowager exploded. "Even now you defend her. Where have your intelligence and judgment gone?" Clutching her forehead, as though losing balance, she seemed to faint backward. "Mother! Mother! Mother! Dowager Marchioness!" Seeing the dowager collapse, everyone in the room panicked. Daniel quickly lifted her and rushed to the main courtyard. "Summon the physician." I too was badly frightened. If anything happened to the dowager, I would have no one left to depend upon. Fortunately, the physician hadn't gone far and was quickly summoned back. After examining her pulse, he determined the dowager suffered no serious condition, only age-related stress from extreme anger. With proper rest and medication, she would recover fully. The entire day had been chaotic, with one crisis following another. By sunset, Daniel finally returned to my quarters, looking utterly exhausted. He seemed drained beyond measure, offering only brief comfort. "Mother is fine. You needn't worry, given your pregnancy. Let this matter end here. I will counsel Rose and look after both you and the child." I watched Daniel quietly, then said seriously, "My lord, you need not trouble yourself. I won't make things difficult for you. Now, I have two solutions to avoid conflict. Would you like to hear them?" Daniel looked up. "Speak," I said softly. "First, send Rose away from the residence to live in external lodgings. Only by removing her from the household could I ensure my child's and my own safety. Otherwise, we'd face constant, unpredictable threats." Daniel clenched his fists, saying coldly, "You'd banish Rose based on mere speculation? That's excessive." After a moment's hesitation, I spoke word by word. "Since my lord rejects the first option, choose the second. I am willing to bear this child and give it to Rose for raising. However, after delivery, I want a divorce." At these words, Daniel was completely stunned. After a moment, anger crossed his face. "Are you threatening me through retreat?" I shook my head gently. "My lord, I have nowhere left to retreat. For so long, Rose and I maintained peace only because I kept yielding. But once I have a child, this balance will shatter. Regardless of the child's gender, intelligence, or temperament, it will claim some portion of your attention, even a tiny fraction that Rose cannot tolerate. Nor can I blame her, because you personally elevated her so high. She cannot and will not descend from that position. Having enjoyed such prominence, losing favor would mean falling from heaven to earth. No one could endure that." Daniel took a deep breath. "Stop being alarmist." Though he argued, his voice lacked conviction. Having spoken extensively, I felt weary, but certain words had to be said today. I rubbed my temples. "My lord, before our marriage, I told you, a family's greatest fear is disunity. Such discord brings endless harm to future generations." I spread my hands and said quietly, "We have been married 2 years now. You understand something of my character. I, Claire, am not without resources. I simply disdain using underhanded methods. However, if someone forces me into desperate circumstances, I will reveal my true nature." Hearing this, Daniel's temple twitched. He laughed coldly. "You threaten me?" I shook my head. "If you remain hesitant and indecisive, Rose and I will inevitably fight to mutual destruction. I refuse to reach that point. My father taught me to read and told me about having principles and aspirations that extend beyond personal concerns. There are so many meaningful pursuits in this world. I won't trap myself in petty domestic schemes, wasting my life on romantic rivalries." My refusal to move against Rose stemmed not from inability, but from conscience and principle. "If you don't decide quickly, you will surely regret it later." After this speech, Daniel's face lost all color. He understood. I was forcing him to choose. Daniel knew my reasoning was sound. The seemingly balanced wife-concubine relationship of recent years concealed countless tensions and crises. Confronted by my steady gaze, Daniel found himself speechless and could only flee in distress. Clearly, he still couldn't face reality, couldn't accept that his beloved Rose would employ such ruthless methods. I didn't pressure him, simply awaited his decision. Several days later, the dowager's health improved considerably. She held my hand, urging me to take care of myself and nurture the pregnancy well, offering many comforting words. I listened gently with a submissive attitude. Though the dowager was kind, Daniel ultimately held authority in this household. On the third evening, Daniel came to my courtyard. He dismissed the servants, his face showing rare dejection. Rose once saved my life. Her inability to bear children wasn't caused by contraceptive medicines from the pleasure house. She was harmed by my former wife, Lady Lee. Daniel haltingly recounted his and Rose's meeting. Rose had originally been a Yangzhou courtesan, treasured by her madam for her exceptional beauty and talents in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. When Daniel traveled to Yangzhou to investigate a case, local officials offered Rose as a bribe. To make these corrupt officials lower their guard, Daniel accepted her, though initially paying her little attention. However, as his investigation deepened and threatened powerful interests, assassination attempts began. To evade pursuit, Daniel used Rose as a decoy while hiding himself. Later, when enemies captured Rose to discover Daniel's whereabouts, he expected her to reveal everything under torture. Instead, Rose demonstrated profound loyalty, refusing to speak despite severe punishment. From that moment, Daniel truly placed her in his heart. The torture permanently damaged Rose's health. After resolving the case, Daniel brought her to his residence. The dowager initially disliked Rose's background, but, learning of her brave actions, praised her as a heroine emerging from humble origins. The former Marchioness, Lady Lee, resented Rose's favor and repeatedly caused her hardship, eventually forcing contraceptive medicine upon her during Daniel's absence. Daniel returned to find Rose near death. He flew into rage, quarreling bitterly with Lady Lee and completely severing their relationship. Lady Lee, being thoughtful by nature, brooded over this incident until illness claimed her life. Daniel looked at me calmly, self-mockingly. I already failed Rose once. I cannot fail her again. So as you suggested, after you deliver the child, I will provide you with a dowry. Whether you remarry or remain single is your choice. His prompt decision actually earned some of my respect. I took a deep breath and curtsied. Thank you for your understanding, my lord. Daniel studied me intently. Claire, I know you are a good woman. I have wronged you and will repay this debt someday. After he left, Mary asked anxiously, Miss, are you truly seeking divorce? After finally having a child, isn't this like making wedding clothes for others? I shook my head and sighed. Remaining in this household, would Rose spare me? Yet if I retaliate and harm her, Daniel won't let the matter rest. Better to withdraw early. This was a battle I could never win. Mary said tearfully, How can your child be raised by that former courtesan? My heart ached too. But if I'm framed and face criminal charges, wouldn't the child's situation be even worse? When Daniel first made that proposal, I had even considered drinking safflower tea to abort the pregnancy for everyone's peace of mind. Yet ultimately, I couldn't bear it. Rose cannot conceive. If she's truly intelligent, she'll treat this child well. That's the only way to secure her future. I explained the situation to Mary. Uncle's troubles have been resolved, and Father has always been cautious. My departure from Daniel now represents the best timing. He feels guilty toward me and won't abandon the Gao family completely. Though the child remains here, it will always carry Gao family blood. That will never change. Our relatives all feel indebted to me, and my sisters have married well, so my divorce won't affect them. Mary, this gives us a chance to return to the Gao family and start fresh. At only 19 years old, why should I continue hiding between Daniel and Rose? Now I simply wanted to escape everything and live for myself. Having made this decision, I could finally focus on nurturing my pregnancy peacefully. Learning of my departure, Rose relaxed and ceased her scheming. After Daniel made his choice, he became more open and natural toward me than before. Several days later during his visit, I seized the opportunity to say, "Please don't tell the dowager about the divorce yet, but could you give me the divorce papers for safekeeping?" Daniel lowered his eyes. "Do you think I'll renege?" I smiled lightly. "Not exactly, but having them would help me sleep better." Daniel sighed. "I never imagined a woman would one day fear me like a venomous snake." I waved my hand. "It's not that. But if he refused to release me after the child's birth, I truly couldn't endure any longer." The next day, Daniel appeared displeased, but still delivered the divorce papers. I stored them carefully, feeling remarkably lighthearted. Hearing of my pregnancy, Mother arrived with large and small packages of supplements and fabrics to visit me. After much consideration, I couldn't help but tell her about the divorce agreement. Upon hearing this, Mother's eyes immediately reddened. I expected reproach, but she only held me and wept. "Mother is useless. I couldn't defend you, forcing you to endure humiliation for so long." Wiping her tears, she continued, "Dear child, after you deliver, Mother will take you home. We'll nurse you back to health properly. Your father has many students from good families with promising futures. Mother will find you a handsome, kind scholar to marry. No more of this indignity." Had Mother scolded me, I would have felt more settled. But her response made me cry in her arms. "Mother, forgive me. I know I shouldn't be so willful. I should think strategically, use the child to gradually win back my lord's affections and secure advantages for father and uncle's careers. But I simply cannot do it." Mother patted my back gently. "My child, I don't blame you. We have been useless." We were speaking when a tall figure appeared outside, likely Daniel. But at this point, I no longer cared. 3 months later, my belly gradually became prominent. Feeling fetal movement for the first time nearly moved me to tears. The sensation of mother and child connected was wondrously magical. However, various discomforts followed. Initially, my appetite had been excellent, but now everything made me nauseous. Even the slightest fishy odor would cause me to vomit completely. My body grew increasingly awkward. Walking a few steps left me breathless. Daniel observed, pregnancy proves so difficult for women. Only now did he realize this. The physician visited regularly, advising me to relax and eat whatever I could manage. Yet I truly couldn't keep food down. The dowager worried greatly and assigned her personal kitchen staff to prepare meals for me. She also rewarded me with numerous items until the storage rooms nearly overflowed. One day, feeling relatively energetic, I decided to commission a golden lock pendant for the child. Daniel happened to visit and saw several lock designs spread on my bed. "What are these?" he asked. While examining them, I replied, "As the mother, I should leave something for the child." Though I would be gone, these items could remain as mementos. Each lock design carried different symbolic meanings. Daniel picked one up, wise and pure heart. If it's a daughter, this would be nice. I tossed it aside. Why must daughters be wise and pure? I only hope for her health, longevity, freedom, and the ability to live for herself. I selected another marked peace and good fortune, suitable for either gender. Daniel stood silently nearby, perhaps touched by my words about his own concerns. I forced a smile and ignored him. Later, when my chosen peace and good fortune lock was completed, Daniel added his selection of long life and 100 years. By 7 or 8 months, my body felt increasingly heavy. Sometimes I couldn't rise for nighttime needs without maid assistance. Mary specially made a floor bed beside mine. Daniel also visited whenever possible. Once, after staying in the main chambers for 5 consecutive days, Rose actually sent a maid to summon him. My lord, our mistress feels unwell and requests your presence. This marked Rose's first such summons. I felt surprised, but merely said, My lord should check on her. Her health is important. Daniel's expression darkened as he scolded. If she's unwell, call a physician. How improper. The little maid paled and hastily withdrew. I found this amusing. When had the Marquis's household ever observed such propriety? Rose's lifestyle, behavior, and protocols violated every traditional rule. Suddenly, demanding propriety seemed rather late. Soon came my delivery day. When my water broke, midwives and birthing chamber were fully prepared. I entered labor immediately. The midwife examined my belly. Madam need not worry. The baby is positioned well. With proper effort during contractions, delivery will come quickly. Both my lord and the dowager wait outside. You are truly blessed. My heart filled with fear, yet I managed to smile. When labor pains struck, I felt every bone in my body being crushed. The midwife urged, Cry out if it hurts. Don't hold back. No one can endure this silently. My voice broke into screams. Ah! 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 Despite some complications, I successfully delivered a son at midnight. The newborn was red and loud crying. After bathing, he looked much more appealing. Seeing a boy, the dowager wept with joy. Daniel reportedly celebrated exuberantly, rewarding everyone present. After several days, the baby's features developed more distinctly. Mary said he resembled me in the upper face and Daniel below, exceptionally handsome and adorable. Perhaps because he was my child, I couldn't take my eyes off him. This tiny bundle affected my every emotion with his cries and smiles. When my health improved somewhat, Mary revealed that during my delivery, they had caught a suspicious woman lurking near the birthing chamber with unknown intentions. This person was handed to Daniel, but naturally yielded no confession. It seemed Rose feared I might change my mind after bearing a son and refuse to leave, so she wanted to send me on my way. This reinforced my determination to depart quickly, though every glimpse of the child's small face cut my heart like a knife. Thus, after 10 days with me, I reluctantly had the baby moved to the wet nurse's quarters. Mary said through tears, Miss the young master. I closed my eyes. Having decided to abandon him, I must not waver. Daniel, delighted with this child, visited daily after court duties, holding the baby continuously. Though most families observe hold sons, not grandsons, Daniel, at 30-something with his first son, understandably felt profound emotion. Learning, I no longer saw the child. He brought the baby to visit me, his eyes showing heartbreaking sorrow. Such pretense now served no purpose. I deliberately looked away, steeling myself. After my confinement period, I will leave. Don't bring the child again. Daniel held the baby's tiny, waving hand and said softly, He's so precious. Can you truly bear this? I turned away. Wasn't this already agreed upon? My lord must not have regrets. After a long pause, Daniel whispered, No regrets. Following this, I rested daily, yet constantly seemed to hear the baby's cries. I realized my own cruelty, abandoning my child because life in this household proved difficult, trading his welfare for my freedom. Was I too selfish? Mary entered, exclaiming, Miss, you mustn't cry during confinement. Please preserve your health. She helped wipe my tears. I took a deep breath and gradually stopped weeping. The situation had reached this point. Further contemplation was useless. Perhaps we simply lacked mother-son affinity. After completing my confinement, I bathed thoroughly from head to toe, then began packing while sending word home for Mother to collect me. 2 months earlier, Daniel had provided me with private property, including excellent farmland and shops in prime locations. I hadn't refused. consider it compensation for bearing children and managing his household these years. Daniel had named the child Nathan with the pet name Nathan. I gathered all valuable gifts from the dowager plus treasures from my natal family, planning to leave everything for Nathan. While deciding whether to entrust these to the dowager or store them myself, I noticed Daniel had been standing outside for quite some time. His face was pale as he stared at me unblinkingly. I didn't know what had possessed him and pretended not to notice. After a long silence, Daniel suddenly said, "Claire, can't you stay?" I frowned and replied stiffly, "The divorce papers were written long ago. My lord shouldn't say such things." Daniel suddenly approached and embraced me, saying emotionally, "I regret this, Claire. I truly regret it. You cannot leave now. Parent-child bonds shouldn't be severed. You are Nathan's birth mother. He needs you. I was too foolish, actually. I have long felt toward you." I pushed him away forcefully, saying clearly, "My lord, I once gave you a choice. You selected Rose. Would you now betray her a second time?" These were his own words to me, returned unchanged. Daniel covered his face with both hands, his voice hoarse. I was wrong. I was stupid. I failed to recognize the pearl and jade before me. I can send Rose away from the residence. I guarantee she'll never again affect you and Nathan. Please don't leave. Unnecessary. Truly unnecessary. Seeing my cold expression, Daniel stood and walked toward the door while saying, "Claire, wait for me. I'm sending Rose away immediately. Wait for me." I didn't know what Daniel intended with this performance. Too late for such realizations. What was the point? That evening, commotion arose outside my courtyard. I wondered what was happening when Mary hurriedly entered, whispering, "Rose has hanged herself." Predictably, I laughed coldly. "How is she?" Mary pursed her lips. "Fine, they rescued her. She says my lord wants to relocate her outside the residence. She refuses to go and is threatening suicide." I knew convincing Rose to leave wouldn't be simple. The night passed quietly. The next day, Mother indeed arrived with many people to collect me. The dowager had gone to the temple early to pray for Nathan's well-being. I deliberately chose her absence for my departure. Though I had suffered considerable grievances in this household, the dowager had treated me well. I left her a letter of farewell. Aside from the child, I felt no attachment to the Marquis's residence, so I instructed everyone to gather my belongings and depart. As our procession reached the gate, however, someone shouted, "Claire, wait!" Turning back, I saw Daniel hurrying toward us, carrying the baby. He stood at the entrance, hands trembling. "Claire, don't go. Can't you give me more time to arrange everything properly?" I sighed, approached, and gently adjusted the baby's blanket. "My lord, let us part here. Whatever happens, Rose can resolve it with tears, tantrums, and suicide threats." "Stop deceiving yourself. You made your choice long ago, didn't you?" Just as I climbed into the carriage, loud crying erupted behind me. "Wah, wah, wah!" My child was crying, such intense wailing. Did he know his birth mother was leaving him? I forced back tears and steeled myself. "Let us depart." The Marquis's residence receded behind us. Daniel stood alone at the great gate holding the child. The plaque reading, "Residence of the Marquis of Jingon," made their father-son figures appear particularly desolate. Upon returning home, grandmother, father, uncle, and aunt all warmly welcomed me, offering comfort and urging me to put everything behind me and rest well. Father choked with emotion. "Dear child, coming home is what matters. Your pre-marriage chambers remain unchanged. Servants clean them daily, waiting for your return." I said tearfully, "Thank you, Father." Father's eyes reddened. "Coming home is what matters. Coming home is what matters." After 3 years away, my younger brother had grown considerably into a young man. He declared, "Sister, I'll protect you from now on and ensure your happiness." My heart warmed. Family was indeed best. I handled my divorce and returned very discreetly, causing no major scandal. Many privately pitied my fate. We always said the Marquis was no good match. This poor girl bore his child and endured such hardship, yet still couldn't keep her husband's affections. From now on, no one will marry daughters into that household to suffer. Only my second sister's mother-in-law, hearing the news, gave my sister trouble for 2 days. But my second sister was no longer the naive girl of before. Having borne the young General Lin a son and daughter, she had established her position in that household. Young General Lin had also learned to defend his wife, silencing his mother's complaints. Soon after, Daniel reportedly found pretexts to discipline the Lin family's eldest son. My sister's mother-in-law then realized that despite my divorce from Daniel, he still protected me. So she quickly backed down. This left me speechless. Daniel's actions no longer concerned me. I only hoped he would treat our child well and asked nothing more. After experiencing 3 years at the Marquis's residence, returning home felt wonderfully comfortable. My parents didn't pressure me to remarry, simply instructing me to rest well. 6 months passed peacefully. The following spring, I learned that trouble had struck the Marquis's household. Though outsiders knew nothing, one of my dowry maids, Willow, had married a steward from the Marquis's residence. Since I hadn't brought her home, she maintained connections there. Willow was close to Mary and specially came to inform me. According to her, after my departure, the dowager fell ill and no longer managed household affairs. Contrary to original agreements, Daniel hadn't given Nathan to Rose for raising, but personally cared for the child with wet nurse's help. Rose resented this arrangement, but dared not openly object. She was affectionate toward Nathan in Daniel's presence, but ignored him otherwise. Willow described vividly, "Young Master Nathan looks exactly like our miss. Every time my lord sees him, he misses our miss even more." One day, Nathan caught a cold and remained unwell for days. Daniel's investigation revealed that Rose had deliberately dismissed the wet nurse and opened windows, hoping to make Nathan ill. Further inquiry uncovered that the baby bore small bruises from Rose secretly pinching him. No wonder Daniel often found Nathan crying. He'd assumed the child was naturally weak. I was furious. What was Rose thinking? I had already left. She had won. Why couldn't she care for the child properly? Willow continued. In his rage, Daniel had Rose confined to the woodshed. Rose, having never experienced such hardship, became half mad. When Daniel visited her again, she spoke incoherently. "I know you resent and hate me. That Gao woman may be gone, but she took your heart. Every time you look at Nathan, you see her. As long as that child exists, you'll never forget her. Since she left, you haven't touched me once. My lord, have you forgotten what happened in Yangzhou?" Hearing Daniel plan to banish her from the residence, she suddenly laughed maniacally. "When men's hearts change, women become worthless. Ha 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 ha." Thus, Rose was sent away. I sighed. Leaving the residence isn't necessarily bad. Rose's former elevated status was obviously unsustainable to perceptive observers. Willow said, "Miss, if she had behaved properly, that would be fine." Mary asked, "What else did she do?" According to Willow, Rose lived in an elegant 2-courtyard house with numerous servants after leaving, a comfortable life if she remained well-behaved. Yet within 6 months, Rose had somehow found a lover, and they were caught in bed together by the steward. When brought before Daniel, disheveled and under guard, knowing forgiveness was impossible, she became completely reckless. "You banished me. Why can't I find another man? Should I remain a widow for you?" "My lord, you're the cruel one. I suffered so much for you in Yangzhou. You forgot so quickly. Ha ha ha. I'll tell you the truth. I knew your plan all along. I collaborated with those people in a deception. The whole suffering for loyalty was an act. Also, I was barren from the beginning. I blamed your former wife, Lady Lee, for giving me contraceptive medicine, but she never did any such thing. I said it, and you believed me, refusing to hear her explanations. Poor Lady Lee. Why did she die so young? You hounded her to death. Ha 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 ha. Only Claire was clever, understanding that wives are less valued than concubines, concubines less than paramours, and paramours less than the unattainable, keeping you forever dangling. Ha 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 ha. Daniel! Exclamation mark. No one knew Rose's final destination, but she certainly never appeared publicly again. Daniel, a powerful marquis, had been manipulated by a courtesan. Absolutely ridiculous. I knew these words came through Daniel via Willow's message, but this meant nothing to me. Several days later, Daniel brought Nathan to the Gao residence. With the child present, my parents didn't refuse him entry. He looked haggard, appearing years older. Upon seeing me, he said quietly, "I've dealt with Rose. Please come back." He pleaded, "From now on, nothing stands between us. This time I'll ensure you enter with full honors as the capital's most respected marchioness. Please, for the child's sake, give me another chance." I shook my head. "Unnecessary, my lord. If the child misses me, you may send him for visits. If needed, I won't neglect the child, but between us, let it end." Daniel looked guilty. "Claire, won't you give me one more chance? Reuniting could be a beautiful story. I realize my past mistakes. I was deceived by that seductress and will never wrong you again." I looked into his eyes and sighed. "My lord, do you remember Samuel Scholar?" Daniel froze. I said, "Samuel constantly complains about Lady Song's jealousy, seeking your advice on managing wives and concubines. Yet every time Lady Song scolds or strikes him, he accepts it willingly. When His Majesty granted him a concubine, he preferred defying imperial orders to refusal." Looking into Daniel's eyes, I continued, "Samuel understands that Lady Song cares for and values him, so he cannot bear to see her sad or hurt." Compared to Samuel, Daniel seemed like a joke. I said calmly, "My lord, if you experienced painful events, wouldn't seeing people and things from that period revive those agonizing, suffocating feelings?" Daniel stammered, "Claire," I said peacefully, "seeing you reminds me of those humiliating, unbearable days in the Marquis's residence. You initially used your power to force my marriage, but never showed me respect. You destroyed all my childhood dreams of marital love and lifelong devotion." Daniel said tremblingly, "Things are different now. I promise you'll be my only woman hereafter. Please forgive me once more." Though he appeared pitiable, this was entirely his own doing. "My lord, you are frightfully heartless. Your former wife, Lady Lee, committed no real wrong, yet you caused her depression and death based solely on Rose's false accusations. You loved Rose deeply, yet once favor ended, you discarded her like refuse. You are the most heartless, faithless man I've ever known." I had recognized this long ago. If Daniel were truly reliable, Rose wouldn't have been so insecure. She had perceived his nature early and feared sharing Lady Lee's fate. I sighed deeply. "My lord, we are divorced. Let us part amicably and each find happiness. Please don't seek me out again." Daniel stood there pitifully with reddened eyes. The moment I turned away, I felt a pang of sympathy. Once, when I first learned of my pregnancy, I had harbored fantasies about him. I hoped we could become a loving couple like my parents, kind father and mother, living peacefully together. But the instant he suggested giving my child to Rose, I severed all romantic illusions completely. Please release both me and yourself." After this frank discussion, Daniel disappeared for a long while. Yet eventually he resumed bringing Nathan to visit every few days. The child grew increasingly attached to his mother, and I missed him too. However, this didn't mean I wished to see Daniel. Therefore, each visit saw me sending my brother to receive the child in the outer courtyard while I avoided appearing. This continued for 3 years until Daniel's final visit. This time, I didn't send my brother, but greeted him personally. Seeing me, Daniel's eyes brightened. "Claire, it's been so long." "You finally agreed to see me," I announced clearly. "My lord, this marks our final meeting. Next month, I will remarry." Daniel's face instantly lost all color. "You're remarrying, but I've been waiting all these years. The Marquis's residence has no other women. I've maintained celibacy, hoping you'd see my sincerity. Nathan and Mother both wish for your return. I am no longer the heartless person you imagined." I said coolly, "Our past ended long ago. I've forgotten everything." At this point, Daniel was like a stranger to me, no longer capable of stirring emotions. Some missed opportunities last forever. Some wounds never heal. When someone truly gives up hope, they never look back. My name is Claire Gao, and I was indeed the most pathetic marchioness in all the capital city. But that chapter of my life has ended. Now I am simply Claire, a woman who has learned to live for herself and has finally found the courage to embrace a future of her own choosing.